kids, it's Mrs. Davis from Happy Place to Grow. I am so glad you are back here with me because I have another great story to share with you from one of my favorite children's authors, Kevin Henkes. Now, Kevin not only writes stories, but he also does his own illustrating, which is drawing the pictures. And the book I'm going to share with you today, Owen, has a special award given to Kevin for his great illustrations in this book, Owen. So I know you are going to not only enjoy the story, but you're going to think the illustrations are absolutely adorable. You know, I told you this before. I don't really love mice in real life, but the characters in these books are just so cute. Just makes me want to keep turning the page. Now, in today's story, our character Owen has something special that he takes with him everywhere he goes. Are you like that? Do you have something that it's very special? You don't want to part with it. Maybe it's a little blanket or a special little stuffed animal. You know, we all have had those when we were young children, and so that's totally normal. However, as we grow, sometimes we have to let those special little security items, we have to let them go. And so in today's story, Owen is going to be dealing with a loss, possibly, of his very special blankie he calls Fuzzy. Now, as we're reading today, I know you're going to enjoy this story, but I also want you to tune in to some special details because we're going to go back over the story and identify some things after reading. Here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about the main character in today's story. Now, the characters are the animals or the people who act out the story, and the main character is who the story is mostly about. The story focus. They're the character that the whole story detail is around. So we're going to be identifying the main character. We're also going to be thinking about the setting of today's story. So the setting is the place where the character is doing the actions or where the events are taking place. Now, sometimes in a story, there can be more than one setting. So let's listen in for the main setting of the story. Now, in today's story, our character, Owen, is going to have a problem. So we're going to be talking out what Owen's problem, his big problem. And then, usually in fiction stories, as the events go on, the character has trouble, has a situation, and then usually by the end of the story, the problem gets fixed or solved. We call that the solution. So today, after reading, we're going to be thinking and talking out the character, main character, the setting, the problem that the main character has, and the solution. All right, sit back. Let's enjoy the story Owen, and let's be tuning in to those 4 story elements. Owen by Kevin Henkes. And there he is in the yard with something special. And then the neighbor is peeking around the fence. She's going to be an interesting character. So stay tuned. Here we go. Owen had a fuzzy yellow blanket. He had it since he was a baby. He loved it with all his heart. And I know you probably can identify with something special that you love so much. Fuzzy goes where I go, said Owen, and Fuzzy did. everywhere. Upstairs, downstairs, in between, inside, outside, upside down, everywhere. Fuzzy likes what I like, said Owen. And Fuzzy did. Orange juice, grape juice, chocolate milk. Delicious. Ice cream, peanut butter, applesauce cake. And you can see Owen's mom is okay with it. She's smiling. And then the neighbor's peeking over. Let's see what she has to say. Isn't he getting a little old to be carrying that thing around? Asked Mrs. Tweezers. Haven't you heard of the blanket fairy? Owen's parents hadn't. Mrs. Tweezers filled them in. Of course she did. Would you call her a nosy neighbor? That night, Owen's parents told Owen to put Fuzzy under his pillow. Look at Owen's face. Wow, he's having none of it. In the morning, Fuzzy would be gone, but the blanket fairy, no wonder he looks like that. If it was dark and your parents said a blanket fairy was coming, you might be a little apprehensive too. But the blanket fairy would leave an absolutely wonderful, positively perfect, especially terrific big boy gift in its place. Let's see what Owen does about that. Oh boy. Now this is a fix right there. Down the old pajama pants. Now that's a hiding place. Owen stuffed Fuzzy inside his pajama pants and went to sleep. Of course he could go to sleep. He felt perfectly comfortable with the fact that no blanket fairy was getting Fuzzy. And in the morning, ta-da! No blanket fairy, said Owen in the morning. No kidding, said his mother. No wonder, said his father. Now that's the situation. Fuzzy's dirty, said Owen's mother. Look at the eyeballs. That says about all we can deduct from that situation. He is not giving that blanket up. Fuzzy's torn and ratty, said Owen's father. No, said Owen. Fuzzy is perfect, and Fuzzy was. To Owen. Uh-oh. Fuzzy played Captain Plunger with Owen. I don't even want you to see. This is the bathroom. You want to see? No, we better not. All right, you asked for it. Naked! Fuzzy helped Owen become invisible. You know, when you don't want to eat your veggies, a blanket can come in handy for invisibility. I like that. And Fuzzy was essential when it came to nail clippings and haircuts and trips to the dentist. You definitely need a buddy, a security thing when you go to the dentist. You know that. You can totally relate, and I can too. And then along comes Mrs. Tweezers with her advice. Can't be a baby forever, said Mrs. Tweezers. Haven't you heard of the vinegar track? Owen's parents hadn't. Mrs. Tweezers filled them in. Now, you know vinegar is a liquid. It's very strong smelling. It's edible. It won't harm you. Hey, they even use vinegar to make pickles, I believe. So, but it's so strong smelling. You know when you walk in the house and somebody's using vinegar. So here's what happened next. When Owen wasn't looking, his father dipped Owen's favorite corner of Fuzzy into a jar of vinegar, as if Owen wasn't going to know that. smell. Owen sniffed it and smelled it and sniffed it, of course. He picked a new favorite corner. He's so clever. He's such a smart kid. Then, or determined not to give up Fuzzy, then he rubbed the smelly corner all around his sandbox, buried it in the garden. Wow, he's getting rid of that smell. And dug it up again. Good as new, said Owen to Owen. And he's happy. Fuzzy wasn't very fuzzy anymore, but Owen didn't mind. He's just so happy with it. He uses it for all kinds of helpful things that he needs. Wow, very creative. He carried it, he wore it, and dragged it. It's very loved. He sucked it, and he hugged it, and he twisted it. It even goes in the bath. And when he's watching scary movies. Now that's a good fuzzy friend. What are we going to do? Asked Owen's mother. School is starting soon. Now, as you're growing up, if you have a special something like a special stuffed animal or a special blanket, when you go to school, you can't take those items with you. That's definitely a problem. And Owen's parents are starting to feel like what is going to help them help Owen separate from Fuzzy. Take a little break. You know, as you grow up, you have to sometimes change and grow and release things that you really have gotten used to. They're sort of a security thing. School is starting soon, said Owen's father. Can't bring a blanket to school, said Mrs. Tweezers. She needs to get out of the situation. What do you think? Haven't you heard of saying no? Owen's parents hadn't. Mrs. Tweezers filled them in. She's always got some kind of advice. Let's see what happens when Owen's parents try the just say no. Oh, you know how that happens in families. When you want to do something and your parents say no, you know there's going to be a situation. Families are like that. We've got, things our parents want us to do, things we want to do. So let's see what happens when the parents are saying no, but Owen just can't give up that blanket. I have to bring Fuzzy to school, said Owen. No, said Owen's mother. No, said Owen's father. They were determined. Owen buried his face in Fuzzy. He started to cry, and he wouldn't stop. He's so sad. There's got to be a solution to this problem. I love when families sit down together and have discussions and try to work things out. Sometimes your parents are going to tell you to do something. You're not going to agree. So it's always great if families can sit down and work things out together. Let's see how the family solves this problem of the blanket, Fuzzy, not going to school, but Owen really still loving it. And that's okay too. Don't worry, said Owen's mother. It'll be all right, said Owen's father. I love how they're always in his corner, helping him work through things. That's what families are for. And then suddenly Owen's mother said, I have an idea. It's an absolutely wonderful, positively perfect, especially terrific idea. What do you think she's going to do? Well, she gets out her sewing machine and she gets right to work as they watch on. First she snipped, then she sewed, and then she snipped again and she sewed some more. Wow, this could be interesting. You think she's going to make him a shirt? Let's find out. Oh, what a great idea. She cut Fuzzy into little squares. Snip, snip, snip. Sew, sew, sew. Dry your eyes, wipe your nose. Hooray, hooray, hooray. She made Owen's Fuzzy into little handkerchiefs. You know, back in the olden days when we didn't have puffs or Kleenex, the paper tissues to wipe our nose or wipe our eyes if we were crying, everybody carried a cloth, a little square called a handkerchief. You would take it out of your pocket and you could wipe your nose and stuff it back in. Yeah, I know that kind of sounds gross, but that's what we had. Then you would take it home and Mom would wash it. That's exactly the solution that Owen's mom came up with, and I think it's fabulous. And look what he does with all his fuzzy pieces. Creative. This is my favorite. Now Owen carries one of his not so fuzzy handkerchiefs with him wherever he goes, even to school. He feels good, Mom and Dad feel good, and what do you think? Will Mrs. Tweezers be okay with this? Let's find out. And there she is. Hey, she's got a pink fuzzy too. Ha! And Mrs. Tweezer didn't say anything. I love that ending. So cute. I know you just loved Owen, and you could definitely identify with him. If you have something special and you have to give it up, it's hard sometimes. But again, I love how the family worked together to create a easy solution. Okay, so we were going to be thinking deeper about our story. You know, enjoying a fiction story is great. You have fun, you think about it, you talk about it. But we were going to identify 4 story elements. And we said that we were going to think about the character, setting, problem, and solution. I drew out this little story map, so to speak. You can talk this out if you want, or if you wanted to be more of thinking about, if you like to express with drawing and writing. I always liked my students to make their information, put it into an organizer called a story map. This one's simple. You can fold a piece of paper into 4 equal parts, and then you label C for character, S for setting, P for problem, and S for solution. And our goal today is to identify the main character, the setting, the place where the character was, most of the events and actions took place, the problem, I know you already know what it is, and then the solution. So let's think about it for a minute. There were several characters, Mom and Dad, Mrs. Tweezers and Owen. Of those 4, who was the main character? The character that the story revolved around. The story events were focused on this character. All right, I'll give you just a minute. Did you say Owen? You are correct. Owen is the main character. And you know, I like to always think about the characters. If you could describe Owen, what would be one thing that one word to describe this character, how he acted in the story, a trait of his? I was thinking that Owen was pretty clever. He was pretty smart. He came up with all kinds of ways to keep fuzzy. That's pretty clever, pretty smart, pretty tricky in a good way. Now, the main character is Owen. Where was Owen throughout most of the story? What place? He was really, in this story, sometimes the setting will change over time if the story happens over time, and the character might go to different places. But in this story, Owen pretty much was at his house, either inside or outside. He was in his bedroom, in the living room, in the kitchen, and he was in his backyard. So the setting of the story is pretty easy to identify. Now let's think for just a minute. If Owen's the main character, what do you think his problem was? What was the main situation? Let's think for just a minute. All right. Did you say that Owen's parents wanted him he had to give up Fuzzy, but he didn't want to? That was a conflict for him. he was conflicted because he wanted to keep Fuzzy. It was so special, but his parents knew it was time to let Fuzzy go, but it was breaking his heart. And so somebody had to come up with a solution. Sometimes the main character will come up with the solution, but in this story, the solution or the fix was thought up by Mom. What was it? Oh yeah, that's right. His mom cut up Fuzzy into handkerchief squares so he could discreetly carry a piece of Fuzzy wherever he went. And you know, if he wants to carry it for however long, he can, and just keep a little piece of Fuzzy with him. Well, I thought that story was fabulous. I wanted to show you the story map that I completed before we close up. And you can do this at home if you want to extend your learning. So we talked about Owen, and when I draw the character in the box in the story map, I just draw a small little, I just drew his little portrait. I identified his name, and I also put a character trait. The setting of the story was his house. It didn't really show us his house, so I just drew a simple drawing of a house. I did draw the white fence that Mrs. Tweezers loved to peek over. I put a P down here for problem. Owen had to give up Fuzzy, and I just drew a little fuzzy blanket down there. And then the solution, his mom cut Fuzzy into small squares for Owen to carry in his pocket or wherever. So if you want to extend your learning with this story, you can draw out and organize those 4 elements that we identified: character, setting, problem, and solution. It's always great if you are reading a story, especially a fiction story, to really think through, because fiction stories can be detailed. There can be lots of events, lots of pages that you're filtering through. So if you're thinking about the purpose for reading today, our purpose was to identify the character, the setting, the problem, and solution. And we did a fabulous job. If you want to organize your thinking, a story map is always a great way to do that. You can try this with other stories too. If you're reading a book and you want to, as you're reading, to think about these story elements, and then you can go ahead and put them into those 4 boxes and write your details down. All right, kids, I hope that I'm not going to say hope because I know you probably did enjoy this story. Owen, such a cute character, and definitely we can identify with his situation. All right, until our next Kevin Henkes story, our next time together, as always, keep your fuzzy security thing close by in case the blanket fairy shows up. And as always, have a good one.